Léon Cavalho, a French impresario and stage director, was born in 1825 in Port Louis, British Mauritius. He migrated to France at an early age and went to study at the Paris Conservatory. As a baritone, he performed at the Opéra-Comique from 1850 to 1855, where he met soprano Marie-Caroline Miolan, who he later married in 1853. Following this, Cavallo relinquished his singing career and assumed the directorialship at the Théâtre Lyrique in 1856. He provided opportunities to the new French composers who had been rejected by the Paris Opera and the Opéra-Comique, including Berlioz, debuting Les Troyens, Gounod with his Faust, Bizet with his Pearl Fishers, and a few works by Saint-Saëns and Delibes. His efforts in promoting and showcasing the younger generations of composers gained him recognition, and with his programming, he revived the Théâtre Lyrique from its dormant state. Although he was mindful of the financial aspects of running a theatre, Cavallo remained steadfast in his commitment to the artistic values. He then went on to manage the Théâtre de la Renaissance and the Théâtre du Vaudeville, where he would then commission a young Bizet. In 1876, he became the director of the Opéra-Comique, where he hosted the world premiere of The Tales of Hoffmann by Offenbach, L'Acme by Delibes, and Manon by Massenet, which all had over 100 performances each due to their immense popularity. His tenure at the Opera House was considered profitable and reasonably progressive. He could be an authoritarian, often demanding that composers make rewrites to make the work more mass appealing, but his judgment would often be correct. That was until a fateful night of the 25th of May, 1887. A fire erupted at the Opéra-Comique, believed to have started from a gas jet that set the wings ablaze, quickly engulfing the entire stage. The flames soon spread to the whole house, causing all the actors to flee in their stage costumes. The roof collapsed, causing showers of sparks to fly as the Place de la Bourse. One of the singers of the performance perished, and many were seriously injured. An artificial fire apparatus meant for the burning of the palace in the second act fell from its place near the roof and exploded, causing the flames to spread rapidly. Within 15 minutes, the stage was a vast furnace. The chaos outside was wild, with falling embers striking horses in the streets, causing them to bolt. Flames shot out of every window and forced the crowds into the narrow streets, leading to a terrible crush. It's believed that the staircase leading to the galleries became blocked, with reports of many people suffocating in the upper tiers. The loss of life was much greater than initially reported, with 156 missing persons inquired for by relatives, believed to have perished in the flames. Among these was a woman holding a baby in her arms. The bottom of the theatre was flooded with water, and 60 bodies of ballet girls, choristers, and machinists were found floating in its depths. Many bodies were burned in the upper galleries, where escape was extremely difficult. 18 ladies, all in full dress, were found lying together at the bottom of the staircase leading from the second story, with no remains of their escorts. One singer had miraculously escaped from his dressing room, and although the wind kept the flames away, a river of molten lead poured from the roof, which he diverted with a board to prevent the shaky floor from collapsing beneath him. The walls of the theatre began falling, causing the search of bodies to be abandoned for the day. The library attached to the theatre was entirely destroyed, along with all its contents, including many valuable scenes and 6,000 costumes. The work of searching for bodies was resumed that night, and a number more were exhumed. Following the fire, blame was attributed by the press, and Léon Cavalho faced formal charges prior to the commencement of the new season. In order to appease all parties involved, Cavalho chose to step aside amongst all the rumours. In December of 1887, Cavalho was sentenced to 3 months imprisonment and a fine of 200 francs for his role in the tragedy, which was exacerbated by an excess of scenery and the flammability of the sets. Additionally, Cavalho and the investment group that had supported his endeavour were held responsible for damages, amounting to nearly 50,000 francs, which were to be paid to the families of the numerous victims. It was reported in the press that the theatre, which had been rebuilt recently under Cavalho, was in every way defective, and has often been remarked that should ever a fire break out, terrible damage would result. A few months later, Cavalho would appeal his sentence. His contribution to the French cultural scene was highlighted, and that under his tenure, 40 works had been premiered, 24 masterpieces had been revived, and numerous singers had been discovered and nurtured. The court was reminded that the Opéra-Comique had been completely disorganised and dysfunctional before his lead, and that the public had forgotten the route to the theatre. Assisted by a government that increased his subsidy and bought out the end of the developer's 40-year lease on the theatre just before the 1879 renovations, he worked tirelessly for 3 years and believed that he had accomplished his goals. Cavalho proceeded to employ new staff and chose repertoire that would win back the audience's favour, quoting, It was by giving perfect renditions of masterpieces that I was able to bring them back to the theatre. His plea was successful and he was acquitted of all charges. The following year, in 1891, Cavallo was enthusiastically accepted back at his post as director of the Opéra-Comique. However, this was not without its initial problems. Cavallo's business partner wanted to distance himself from the scandal and left, taking with him 50% of the 600,000 francs needed to look after the theatre. Offers poured in from the concerned community in support of Cavallo. Industrialists, shopkeepers, and private citizens in a crowd-raising frenzy amassed a new budget of a massive 750,000 francs. By now, any sense that Cavallo was connected with the fire was quelled, and the people of Paris were trustful and eager that he would make the most of the funds and lead an exciting new chapter at the Opéra-Comique. The press commented, "He is an artist down to the tips of his fingers. He is an irresistible Parisian. Why? Because he never made a fortune and he never will. Art consumes him. He will enrich it, he'll make profits rise, and he'll make the investors glow. He'll create great singers and illustrious divas. He will carry men and works on his back, but he will not profit from it." Léon Cavalho's contributions to the arts were substantial and lasting. He was responsible for launching the careers of several renowned composers, reviving a struggling theatre, and introducing innovative programming that appealed to both artistic and financial sensibilities. His legacy lives on through the works he championed and the impression he left on the theatre industry. Long after his death in 1897, Cavallo's influence continues to be felt by all, and he remains an important figure in the history of French opera and the performing arts.